Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast. And today I'm excited for this conversation because when you take a look at branding and video, it's something we all know we're supposed to do in today's 2024 environment. I mean, video is it. But so many times we miss out on doing it because it seems difficult, we don't have the time. So I'm so excited to have Chris Andersen here with us today to talk about how to elevate your brand with video podcasting. Now, he's the founder and CEO of Elevate Media Group. It's a full service video production agency for small to medium sized businesses. He quit his job cold turkey in 2020 to build a life he loves and has been able to do that since. Chris and his team help businesses elevate through video production so they can make a bigger impact on the world. Plus, get this, he is the host of the Elevate Media podcast, a top 1.5%. Yeah, you heard that correctly. 1.5% globally listened to show that has been charted in the top 20 for entrepreneurship and at 43 on Apple's business category. Okay. That is not an easy feat to do, audience. So you are definitely going to want to listen to Chris today. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hey, thanks, Kim, for having me. I want to go out and run a marathon after that intro. You just got me pumped up listening to it. So thank you for that.
Gee, I wonder who wrote it. It's really good.
Well, that's how you presented it. That energy behind it, Kim, was fantastic. So I appreciate that.
Well, it's funny. I've always been really good at reading, so that helps when you have to do bios on a podcast. Chris, I want to start off with just sort of an obvious question, and that is it difficult to elevate your brand with video? Because we've heard so much about it, so many confusing things about it.
Yeah. So it kind of goes back to the same thing you hear about, building a business. It's simple, but it's hard. And so you don't have to put a lot into it or overcomplicate it, but we tend to do that. So the whole thing with building your brand or branding yourself through video is simple, but it does take work, and it's not necessarily something that's just going to come naturally. It's not going to be super easy, but the ROI is going to pay for itself, especially in the time we're in now with AI and everyone else being online and all these, quote unquote fake AI generated images and videos now that are coming through Sora. Is It's more important now than ever to have video representing yourself and your brand online, because we miss that human interaction so much nowadays. Everything's bought online,
Mhm.
everything is done online. And now with AI generated things, that gap between human interactions between humans is getting wider. And so brands that really lean into, the live streams even, or the video podcasts, the vlogging, they're going to be a step ahead with what they're doing and using video.
It's funny you say that because I think one of the things that, ends up missing, and I think it's a key element in branding and, authority marketing, positioning, visibility, is the authenticity piece. The authenticity of your voice, the authenticity of your message, the unique way that you say something that is is designed to have an impact on a certain group of people. I think one of the things, the misconceptions is that we have to be everything to everyone. And so, AI helps us to be everything to everyone,
Right.
but I don't think we were meant to be everything to everyone. I think, especially in the entrepreneurship realm, thought leadership, consulting and all that, the more you can differentiate and be something to somebody
Mhm.
and use video to do that, I think that's going to put you ahead of the game.
Absolutely, yeah, and even with the AI, capabilities of, cloning yourself and your voice and everything, I think we're still, you know, decades away from it being pretty close to spot on, and so there's still some you still notice that it's not the actual person, and so that right now, at least, because we're early in it, puts a little bit of gap of the trust there. People are like, it's
Mhm.
not really them. So it just sets people off differently. Obviously, decades from now, when that is the way, people will be used to that kind of thing. And by then, who knows, we'll have holograms or something will pop up on the, the desk or something with video. But yeah, it's just, when we try to, help everyone, or when we try to solve all problems, we solve no problems and we help no one. It's the old, kind of image, the story of if you chase two rabbits, you catch neither. And so when you can get really good at chasing that one rabbit and catching that and solving that one problem for that specific group of people, especially starting out, it's going to help
Yeah,
you elevate a lot faster.
I couldn't agree more. I've never heard that analogy. I like that.
Yeah.
Don't chase 2 bunnies, only
Yeah.
chase 1. I like it.
Have you ever had experience with rabbits? It's pretty difficult. So
I haven't, but I've got a very vivid imagination, and I can picture that one in my brain.
yeah. Yep.
So, Chris, I want to just we're going to talk about, video and that, but I want to just take a step back because there was something in your bio I just found really kind of fascinating. You quit your job cold turkey in 2020. I want to hear more about that and why you decided to do that.
Yeah. So if you guys remember 2020, what happened? We had a little thing called a pandemic hit. And in Indiana, it really hit hard in April. And I'm from Indiana. So in April 2020, that's, the month I picked before knowing this was going to happen. And, it's just perfect timing, right? Never a best time to start a business, especially when you quit your job. It's probably not even any easier when you have a pandemic going on and all the economic crisis after that. But yeah, I just, I had started my podcast back in 2019. And
Mhm.
the whole premise of the start of it was I wanted to interview successful entrepreneurs, figure out how they did it, how they overcame, how they succeeded amongst obstacles and challenges. And so I could learn, but then also so I could share it and put it out there for
Yeah.
others to learn as well alongside me. And, I'd be going and I'd been listening to Lewis Howes, The School of Greatness, quite a bit. I love that podcast. If you
Mm,
don't know Lewis Howes, amazing. He's been doing it for, I think, coming up on a decade now. I don't know. It's been a long time. Probably past a decade. But anyways, great podcast, The School of Greatness. And so I was like, man,
book is
Lewis
good
Howes is
too.
doing- huh?
The book is good
Oh yeah,
too.
yeah. And so I was listening to him, and I kept learning from these individuals of like what was possible outside of what I learned in school and what I was doing. I was an athletic trainer, so I was going and helping people improve their health and well being in a 9 to 5 setting. And then I just started, there's more out there. There's more that I could do. And we had some things happen in life. And, my wife lost her last 3 grandparents. I lost my last grandparent all in the span of a year. She lost her last 3 in the span of 3 months. At the end of that,
Wow.
at the end of 2019, actually. And the job I work for, and this is no fault to them. It's just kind of how business is. They're like, "Hey, you've already used your bereavement. You've used all your PTO. You can't go down to Texas because that's where my wife's family's from." And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to Texas. I'm going to be there to support my wife and her family." Like that's not the conversation we're having. And they're, "Well, it'll be unpaid time off." And I said, "I'm going to Texas. Like this is what I'm doing, and it doesn't matter to me." Um, and so that's what, and it just started the ball rolling even more because I had the inkling of like,
Mhm.
I could do something. I was kind of doing it on the side, trying to figure it out. But I'm kind of a stubborn person, especially when people tell me what I can do and what I can't do, and then where my time, like what my time is worth, especially when it comes to family. And so that was kind of like it expedited the process for me. And fast forward to early 2020, actually was coming back from Toronto from a convention. I was listening to Bob Proctor, the late Bob Proctor, if you know who that
Oh, I love Bob Proctor.
is.
I've actually met him a couple of times
Yeah,
in person.
yeah. So it was a small get together, and so I was front and center, right, listen to Bob talking, and the first time I'd heard him talk in person, and the last, unfortunately, um, and it just something started clicking with me. And faith is a big part of my journey, and so I just was praying about it, and I heard God say, "Hey, I want you to quit your job. I want you to trust me that I got something bigger for you." And I was like, "Okay, interesting." And so I was like, "Are you sure?" And it just kept getting this on the way
Yeah, I've
back
had
from
those
Toronto.
moments too.
Yeah. So on the way back from Toronto, I have like a 9-hour drive. I call my wife, and she's a math teacher, 8th grade math teacher for some context. So she's very analytical, very A plus B needs equal C. And I was like, hey, I think, I'm being led to quit my job and start a business. She's like, that doesn't make sense. Your income going away, that doesn't really add up. I said, I get it. If we're supposed to do this, we'll be on the same page. I believe that. And so we kind of each prayed about it individually. And then it come March, she was like, hey, I think you're supposed to quit your job. I was like, all right, heard loud and clear. Okay, here we go. And so April,
Yeah.
I gave them my 4 weeks notice. 2 weeks into that, pandemic hit. I get furloughed for the last 2 weeks, and that was it. And that was my journey into entrepreneurship. And it took, I have Elevate now. We're, doing good, but it took a while to get between April 2020 to where I actually started officially Elevate the end of 2021. And so there's a lot
Yeah.
of learning, there's a lot of faith building, there's a lot of screw up and mess ups to get to that point. And even then, after Elevate was started, yes, it's started growing, but you always have your hills and valleys and mountain peaks and along business. Even when it's doing good, you have those down moments, those downturns, and you just got to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
So it's been quite the journey. So
I am a person of faith, and I have had those moments when, God has spoken to my heart,
mhm.
and I'm like, seriously, God?
Yeah,
Seriously?
yeah,
I'm like, I am willing to be obedient. But, my husband is not an entrepreneur, very logical,
yeah,
computer tech, all that kind of stuff. So, every time I've been in a few businesses over the years, and they've all been learning, growing experiences, but not all of them made money. And, so when I go to start a new business, my husband would be like, yeah. So I hear you. I
yep,
understand. But, thankfully, over time, he's come to realize that, an entrepreneur is who I am.
mhm,
It's one of the things that God created me to do. And so now we just celebrated. Well, you guys will be listening to this in March. In February, we celebrated 33 years of marriage. So
congrats,
now
that's
he is
huge.
very proud of me as an entrepreneur and, supports it. But the first few years of it were, let's just say, challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, and, like, so we had been married, let's see, 2020, 4 years, coming up on 4 years of marriage, and then so 2020, we got pregnant and had our first kid, like, right before I started Elevate in 2021, and so, like, now I'm starting basically a new business in 2021 with a brand new baby, and her going back to school, so she has the summers off as a teacher, and so, like, a whole lot of things happen at once, and then, we just had our second son about a year ago, so yeah, it's definitely, you know, life happens, so you just gotta decide you're
Yeah.
gonna do it or you're not, and kinda keep moving.
Yeah. It's funny. I can't believe it's been 4 years. Like, we're coming up on 4 years since it started, and
Yeah.
I remember when everything went down, I was thinking, "Oh, it's only gonna be a few months," and then 2 years later, man, and
Yeah.
now it's been 2 years since. It's just time is going by so fast.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick ad break. Audience, you know what time it is. RTI Publishing has some great resources for you. And if you're wondering about authority marketing, if you're wondering, can a book really make a difference? If you're just wondering, even, are you ready to write a book for your business? I would invite you to listen to this short ad. Writing and publishing a book that converts readers into client and scales your business is hard, but it doesn't have to be. Get my free checklist at bit.ly/create and scale that will show you what you need to do to have your book become a well-converting lead generating tool. Welcome back. Chris, thank you so much. I loved hearing that story and how, you just were obedient to do what you felt God telling you to do. So many times we don't see the picture ahead. Sometimes we don't even see the next step. And God just says,
Yeah.
trust me.
Yep.
I know the way. I know the path. I've got a plan for you. You just have to take that next step.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean the steps aren't going to be slippery or filled with
Tell
obstacles.
me about
Like once you do it, it's not like, oh yeah, this is smooth sailing. I'm following what God's leading me into, not necessarily the truth. Many times, a lot of times, it actually gets harder, in my opinion, because there's a lot
Yeah, amen
trying
to
to go
that.
against that. So, it is. Entrepreneurship's not for the faint of heart, and I don't say that to fear tactics or scare people. I want them to realize, like, because especially right now on social media, all we see a lot of the times are the highlights, even with video. And I don't want people to get a fake, facade of what it might be, because when you start, it's going to be hard. It's simple. Like I said, it's a simple process, but it will be hard. It will test you. And you have to, be willing to sacrifice some things. And that's just part
Yeah.
of it. Depending on where you're at with life and what your choices are, like it's just that's why not everyone succeeds or gets to the level they want to get to because of that. And so I just want people to be aware, like you can do it, but just be ready because it's not going to be the easiest thing.
Well, the funny thing is I've learned is the individual actions themselves are not hard.
Yeah. Yep.
But when you have to do so many of them day in, day out, not always seeing results,
Yep.
having to trust in, sort of the momentum factor where you have to build up without seeing a lot of results till you kind of hit that momentum point. You
Yeah.
have to make consistency your best friend, and she's not an easy friend to have,
Yeah. And
'cause
well,
she
and
gets on your case an awful lot.
yeah, people are so used to, instant gratification now too with social media. It makes it even harder for them to understand that because they can get whatever they want right away. They
Yeah.
can order what they want, have it, next day or 2 days. And so that makes it even harder for people to start when they have that, so baked
Mhm.
into their lifestyle. Because yeah, it is. You have to put in the work day in and day out, the small actions that build up over time that then will
Yeah.
start becoming, the fruitful responses to that, but you have to put in the work. And if you're not getting the amount of results you want, it's probably because we need to increase the amount of actions we're taking.
We're going to shift over because this is a good point to shift over to actually talking about, elevating your brand with video podcasting. But, you talked about the fact that, we see these highlight reels from people's life, but you don't realize how many years they've put in before you see that highlight reel. I mean, you look at people like Bob Proctor,
Mhm.
Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, Oprah Winfrey, all of these people, they had years of prep
Yep.
before they
Yeah.
suddenly, quote unquote, if you're listening on the podcast app, before they made it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I hear you. Chris, I want to let you loose for a little bit because the time is running by fast there, and I want to make sure we get to today's topic. So I'm going to let you loose to share about how you elevate your brand with video podcasting.
Sure. Yeah. So we can talk specifically about video podcasting or video in general. They fall along the same premise basically. So you want to just show up, right, for your people. Who are those you're trying to help? And you can use video podcasting, video content to do that uh, in multiple ways. So you can do it as an authoritative building block to your brand, so people can know, like, and trust you. You can do it as a value add, which is why I started my podcast. You just add value, help people out. There's no sell in it, and it just builds your connection with that audience as well. But what I love about video podcasting is that it opens the door, especially if you're interviewing people. So that's how a lot of our business started was, hey, I'd love to have you on the podcast. I'd love to, put you on a pedestal because you're an expert in this topic and I think it can help my audience. And then, you build that relationship from opening that door that can then say, hey, we do videos, we do video production, we help people launch video podcasts. Is that something you'd be interested in? And you've already built a connection. You already had conversation. You already, kind of know, like, and trust each other. And so it's a great tool to open the door to more business. And a lot of people miss this with video podcasting. They think I'm going to do a video podcast and it's going to make me money directly. And that's not how it
No.
goes, especially for a long time. So same with YouTube.
Yeah,
The same thing with YouTube, video on YouTube. Like it's the door opener to
yeah.
possible new clients is what it should be. Instead of I'm going to get a bunch of sponsors and I'm going to make a bunch of money. because people who do that, they miss out on the true value add it can be for their audience and the relationship builder it can be for their business for the future. It's so we've had a handful of clients who get started and like, our downloads aren't enough. We wanted to get X amount of sponsors and all. I was like, yes, but that's a long-term play. Like that is big
Yeah.
picture. I mean, you got to get to like Lewis House type numbers before you like makes a difference. Like we make very small from our podcast because that's not our main goal with it now. But we've been doing it for a bit and have grown something. So like your main thing with video podcasting or video content should be add value, help in some way, and then direct them to the next thing, whether that be your next nurturing opportunity
Mhm.
through a lead magnet or a email chain, or maybe it is straight to your product or service. But the video podcast, the video content should be there to educate, entertain, or just connect more with those, making it relative to them in life. And
Yeah.
that's where a lot of people they come at it wrong. They're like, it's going to be a moneymaker. It's going to pay for itself. The editing, if I'm outsourcing it, and the work and the time, it'll pay for itself. And they get discouraged because their view is skewed on what it could be and what it looks like because they see everyone else saying, "Hey, we got a sponsor, we got this and that," and it's like that took time and work to
Yeah.
get to that. So you've got to see it as almost kind of labor of love. That
Mhm.
again, how we mentioned earlier, the consistency of it will pay for itself over time, and that's
Yeah.
how I saw it. So we've released over 360 episodes, I think now, and I think it was just the end of last year we started making money from it because
Yeah.
we didn't really focus on that until then to try. And even then, it's super, super low. Like it wouldn't cover any editing hardly. Like it's just, makes a little bit
Yeah.
extra on the side for us. But like it takes time and it's a buildup of the effort and work you put in it beforehand, just like the business. But this just allows you to build that know, like, and trust factor through video because people are going to see you, they're going to hear you. So they're like, oh, man, yeah, I love Kim. I love how she presents stuff. I love her energy. I love, how she teaches and guides like that. I resonate. I fit with her abilities and the way she
Yeah.
does it. So I want to know more about what she does. And that's where you guide them to the next thing, which just gets them closer to becoming a client so you can help them solve their problems or get to that point. It's just a step in the roadmap.
And when you look at video podcasting or even just podcasting in general, um, I don't make money from doing this podcast. So audience, if you think I'm raking in tons of money doing this for you, I don't. It actually costs me. I don't make enough to pay all the, that comes out of the business
Mhm.
marketing fund.
Yep.
So, but don't feel bad for me. I'm not asking for money. But I think one of the things with video podcasting as well, is the network of people that you build,
Yeah.
right? So, one of the goals for me is getting to connect with people like you, people who have expertise in different areas. And, I've been doing it since 2019. We will be coming up to 500 episodes in April,
That's
audience.
awesome.
And I can tell you, you are not going to want to miss that episode. We will have on the show Dave Sanderson. Now, you may not know who he is, but he was one of the passengers on the plane that went down in the Hudson River.
Mhm.
And he is he is an international speaker, a philanthropist. Okay, that's not coming out today. Uh, he speaks all over the world about creating opportunity out of uncertainty.
Mm.
He just released his book in January, The Limitless Life, which we actually did produce. RTR
Awesome.
Publishing produced it. But he is an amazing person and audience. You are not going to want to miss the 500th special episode. And
That's
we
awesome.
may even make it an hour long one. So just be prepared that this is going to be a really good one. But, Chris, one thing I was thinking about is the fact that social proof.
Mm.
And I don't think people understand the impact that social proof has on your brand, has on, how people see you as that credible expert. You talked about the fact that, people like the way I say things, or my energy, or my teaching and my training. But that also comes down to speak to, you know, the trust factor. We all hear about the know, like, and trust factor. Well, video podcasting helps with all three, but it also helps with the credibility.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I always, go to this because it's a truthful thing. So when you're starting on video podcasting, video content, you got to just get started. A lot of people have that
Yes.
fear of like, well, what do I look like? What do I sound like on camera? And like, so there's two sides of this coin. It doesn't matter, but it does matter because we want to obviously show up as your best, whatever that is. That's the most important thing. You can always improve. But on the flip side, unfortunately, people judge. The first
Yeah.
thing when they see someone, they judge, good or bad. And we all do it. I'm guilty of it. And so the more we can show up, or the best we can show up on camera,
Mhm.
how it sounds, how it looks, that's going to set us apart as well, especially in the world with so many people doing video and being online. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. People judge
Yeah.
at first. And so you want to come with the best foot forward. Now, don't let that discourage you. You can go back and look at some of my first podcast episodes when I first started, when it was before it was rebranded to Elevate Media Podcast, and they are terrible. They look terrible. And we made it to where we are
I'm
now. So,
laughing, Chris. I'm laughing because my podcast mentors said, pick the most famous person you know and let them be your first interview
mm,
to start the podcast.
yeah.
So the most famous person I knew was Bob Berg,
I don't know if I know Bob Burg.
the author of The Go Giver. You've got to read that book.
Oh, yes, I know I have that book. I've read that book. I'm bad with
Okay.
authors, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So he agreed to be on my show.
That's awesome.
I had no clue how to interview anyone. And
Yeah.
he had to carry the whole
Oh,
interview
oh,
because I was so nervous. He was so gracious. You would have never known that he was
yeah.
carrying the whole thing. He could tell I had no clue what I was doing. And I mean, he is a
Yeah.
consummate speaker and he just carried the whole. Oh no, I'm like,
And
oh
that's
my
awesome that he
God, it
does
was
that. But
so
it's, I mean, you can
bad.
go look back, like, seriously, like mine are terrible. Like they're off. I'm wearing kid Captain America headphones on camera. Like my wife gave them as like a gag gift, and I was like, oh, these are cool. So I wore them. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't have a good mic. I didn't have anything. I don't have any of the setup. If you're watching this right now, I don't have the lights. I didn't have the background. I didn't have, and this is a real background. It's not green screen. I didn't know any of this stuff, but I started, and I started to improve as quick as I could. And that's what we have to do. So like I said, a two-sided coin, just get started the best you can, but people will judge. So just get ready for it and just try to improve as fast and as quickly as you can. Obviously, we can only invest so much. So people are like, oh, if you truly want it, you'll take out credit cards and all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't know
No.
for that. When we're ready, I think there's a fine line to walk that. I've been on both sides and I've learned. So I don't ever push someone to, oh yeah, just open our credit card and we'll do this. Like,
Yeah, I
but
I
anyway,
hear you.
you just gotta get started because you're never gonna get better if you don't start. And like I said, Kim can attest to it too with her journey. Like I was terrible. I had outline with like the questions and I would read. It was super robotic. And until I had one of my guests on, they're like, it kind of sounds really robotic what you do. And I was like, okay, done with that. And then after that, it was just how can I be a better interviewer with no questions, no paper, just talking. And that's how I improved and kind of just jumped into it. But yeah, you can go back and you can look how bad they were when it was when it was called pencil leadership and when it was first started. And I hope that gives you hope because you can start out better than I did and get to a better level than I am now. So
And we're going to transition in just a moment because we're almost done here. But one thing I was thinking about as you were speaking is the fact when you do these things, you can't care about the people who are going to judge you.
right.
Like you just have to let that water down the back, right? Like
Mhm.
you have to have the attitude. I mean, I always care about people,
Yeah.
but I don't care what people think about me. If they don't like me, if they don't like the way God made me, if I'm too big, bold, brass, if as a woman I shouldn't be a successful entrepreneur. I mean, I've heard and seen it all. Uh I've just learned that I know who I am and I know who I'm called to be. And if someone doesn't like that, that's okay. They don't have to like me.
Yeah.
Um, I have to like me. And
Right.
I know the people who love me just the way I am.
Mhm.
And so, don't be afraid to go out there because there's always going to be someone who's going to judge you.
Yep.
But on the other end, this is, we look at that, but we don't think about the other end. And those
Right.
are who I call your brand ambassadors, those people who will love you, who you will have big impact in their life. Do it for them. Don't
Yep.
do it for the people who hate you. Do it for the people who are going to love you.
Yep. And that's what helped me kind of get through some of those moments of like, is this really worth it? Is anyone actually listening? Am I making a difference? Is this going to turn into anything else? Is if I can help
Yeah.
one person, then it's worth it. And I've
Yeah.
had random people reach out and say, hey, I love that episode. It really spoke to me. Thanks for doing that. Things like that. And those little moments, they don't happen that often. But when they do, and you see those, it's like, okay, let's keep going. We're making a difference. So
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to mention, and you're probably aware of this, but if you are a podcast host, or you want to, if you're a podcast host looking for guests, or you want to guest on podcasts, a really great platform, and this is where I met Chris, I believe, was Podmatch. Now, one thing that some people may not know, as a host, when you're on Podmatch, um, you receive a small little bit of money whenever you interview people from the guest side of Podmatch. Now, you don't make a lot of money, but I make enough each month that it covers some of my editing costs. So if you are a podcast host and you're looking, you want to find great guests, or if you want a guest on great podcasts, check the show notes. There'll be a link there. Yes, it is an affiliate link. Yes, if you sign up and you pay for the membership, I make a little bit of money. Like I may make enough to buy myself a cup of coffee each month. So
yeah,
there you go. Um, but if you're looking for a platform that's going to help you either to grow your podcast or grow your guesting, I definitely highly recommend Podmatch.
yeah, yeah. I love Podmatch, and it makes it so simple. And
Yeah.
as an agency, we also help find guests for shows, and so we can use it on the agency side as well. And it's just a truly great platform. Now, I didn't realize when I signed up, I didn't know this at the time, but they frown upon you charging for guests to be on the show.
Yeah.
Um, and so that is one way. So full transparency, that's how we make money on the show. Is we had to figure out at a certain point we were getting so many marketing emails for people to be on the show that we had to sift through. We had to make a delineation of, okay, who's serious about it, who's really wanting to bring good
Yeah.
value. So we put a small fee, and it's like I said, it's small. Um, but yeah, Podmatch doesn't necessarily like that. We've had one person who asked to be on the show tattle on us, quote unquote, tattle on us, and tell Podmatch. And they kind of said, hey, just don't be charging and stuff. So we got to figure out a workaround to that. But I was like,
Actually, they
really
just
tattling?
changed it.
Okay, maybe
They
because
just
of us.
changed
Who
it.
knows? Or us and a lot of other people probably. But
So we're now as a guest, because I'm on both sides.
mhm.
Um, when you go to approach a podcast, it will tell you if they charge
Oh, really? We'll have to look at that setting
before
too.
you even message them.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean,
So
because
that, yeah.
sometimes we waive that, especially, like, if there's a connection built or something like that, but, like, we were getting so many messages, like, we
Oh, I
couldn't take
know.
everybody, and so I was like, "How can we filter it out? How can we make it good for everyone?" And that was just the best, like I mean, we built this show, and we built it to the top 1.5% globally listened to, so it's like, they're coming to market to our audience, um and it's basically highlighting them. So if they're paying, and a lot of them were paying PR firms to reach out to us. And so I'm like, all right, they're already paying people to get them on audiences that they
Yeah.
think would be beneficial to what they're doing, selling their book or pushing their course. I was like, so I didn't feel bad doing that. But if I reach out to someone, I don't ever say, and here's how much it costs. Like if I'm reaching out to someone, I'm not going to charge them for it. So that's how I differentiate it. Like, although I have been reached out to be on someone's show, but they're like, yeah, it's $5,000 per spot. And I was like, it would probably be pretty good because I get like 1 million views a month. But I'm like, I don't know the ROI just yet on that. So, but yeah, I'm always fair about what we do. So like that's how we kind of make the money. And it's like I said, uh, it's very not very small per guest spot. So
Well, Chris, we are out of time, so I'm not going to get to ask you the one question I was going to, but I think we're going to have you back again because I think we need to continue this conversation. We kind of touched on the basics, and I'd love to do a deeper dive into the
sure.
topic. So, Chris, just as we close out, would you be willing to share just a quick final thought? And for the people who have loved listening to you today, how can they connect with you?
Sure. Yeah. So before my final thought, the best way to connect with me is, on Instagram. You can connect with my personal account at chris.t.andersen. And if you have any questions, with video, with entrepreneurship and whatever in general, I still answer those personally and I love to have conversations. So I love to help. So reach out there. That'd be awesome. If you're interested in growing, elevating what you're doing through video, we're actually going to be releasing a course this summer 2024. And if you want to get on that wait list, it's elevate-media-group.com / elevation nation. So you can join that wait list. We're really rolling out a lot. It's going to be a lot of great information on how to grow your entrepreneurship business, your through video and all sorts of things, how to interview better, how to do better video, all that fun stuff. So excited to get that out for people at a fairly low investment. So those are the best ways. Or you can check out the Elevate Media podcast to learn about how to elevate your life and business. But my final thought for everybody listening, if you're thinking about doing video content, just do it. You're going to learn a lot of valuable skills, especially if you're getting into video podcasting and you're going to interview people. How I interview now compared to when I started, like I said, is night and day. And I've come a long way. And so it's helped me learn how to be a better interviewer, how to be a better speaker, how to communicate better, how to build better relationships. So it's worth it in the long run to have that and be able to get on camera and learn, different techniques, how to look good. So just do it. And remember, it's a value add. You're adding value to people's journey. And I truly believe everyone has a story and everybody's story matters. It's a big part of, my kind of my mission is helping people understand that and to elevate them in their lives, because, there could be one person out there that is going through it that only your story will resonate with them and make a difference positively in their life. So don't shy away from that. Lean into it. And you don't have to have a big traumatic event. You don't have to have anything crazy, but your story matters and it can make a difference. So go out there and don't be afraid to share it and make a difference in someone else's life.
Love it, Chris. Love it. Audience, if you are looking for the next amazing episode to watch after this one, I highly recommend that you go to episode 482, would just be if you're on your favorite podcast app, you're just going to be scanning back just a little bit. If you're on YouTube, you do know the routine of my daughter putting the thumbnail here somewhere on the screen for you to click on. Thank you so much for listening today, and we will see you on the very next episode. Bye now.